Many people think sharpening is just grinding a tiny bit of the edge to get through the food and stuff. But truth is, it's not all that. Today, I'm gonna use this Santoku to show you how to kind of properly sharpen, especially Japanese knives. Well, if you're new to sharpening or Japanese knives, you may think this is a sharpening tool. In fact, we call it honing tool. Difference between sharpening and honing is that this tool is to try to maintain the existing edge. Just takes the bit of burr off and keeps the edge nice and straight. Where sharpening stones or the sharpening techniques that I'm going to show you today is going to remove the steel off. If you want to know how to use these honing rod properly, there's a video. When it comes to sharpening, lots of people think all they need to do is just grind the tip of the edge so that it goes through the food nicely. But this type of technique can be used for many other Japanese knives. Don't get me wrong, sharpening the last edge is very important when it comes to knife sharpening. So every time you sharpen the edge of a knife, what happens is that it comes up, up, up. When it comes to a couple millimeters up, that will make the edge very thick. And thicker knives will cut like an axe. They try to break the food rather than slicing through. So what we're going to do is to actually sharpen this whole bevel to keep the edge nice and thin. Then we'll put the final bevel at the edge level. So if you're just a beginner, wants to learn how to just sharpen the edge, skip to or check out our Nathan's Knife Sharpening Basics video. Alright, here's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use a Knifewear 220 grit stone. This is going to do most of the heavy lifting on the knife. Hibiki 1000 stone, I'm going to use this to kind of set up the micro bevel. And Knifewear 1000 stone, this will blend out the scratches very nicely. This is one of my favorite stones. So I'm going to finish with Knifewear 4000 stone to give it an extra smooth edge. And don't forget to grab a truing stone. This will keep your stone nice and flat. Then, leather strap to just take the micro burr off. First off, I'm going to use Knifewear 220 to sharpen this whole bevel. What we're going to do is to sharpen this whole bevel by putting the knife flat on the blade so that it makes this whole bevel nice and thin. You want to thin it until this micro bevel is not visible. So if you want to go in more in depth on this how to thin your knife, check out this video. But here's the simple, quick version. So in order to tell the angle, it's pretty easy. Put the knife flat on the stone, then push the bevel, then that will give you the angle. I usually start from the tip. You could definitely start from the heel. It really doesn't matter. All you have to do is just go simple back and forth motion. Make sure you put enough pressure down, but don't put too much pressure so that it impedes the motion like this. You want to do very nice glide. In order to get a nice glide, you want to have enough water as well. Knife like Santoku, you can probably do it with the 3 different sections: tip, middle, and the heel. So I'm gonna move to the middle. So when you compare, so this is the before, you can still see the about like 0.5 millimeter of micro bevel there. You may see the still very fine hairline along the edge, but it's fine because if you make it too thin, it's almost like it starts to crumble. It's like fabric frailing. Do the same on the next second side. If you're uncomfortable, just hold the knife on the same hand all the time. It's not that hard. All you have to do again is to put the knife flat and press down where the bevel is, and that will give you an angle. Again, I usually start from the tip. The micro bevel is almost gone. So this is how much you want to do the thinning with 220 grit. 220 grit is essential stone because this stone does do the almost all the heavy lifting. It does grind more steel than any other stones that I'm going to use today. I'm going to move on to the next stone, Knifewear 1000 stone. After you finish your bevel with 220 grit, it's pretty rough so that it could actually drag the food along. You want to make it kind of a little bit more smoother because it can actually affect the taste. Yeah, also, a lot of people don't really like the scratch bevel, the look. Also, another thing is that this is carbon steel knife. Deeper the scratches, it is easier to rust. So basically, it's do the same thing, find the angle by pressing it down, do back and forth. So this is basically the same technique. Probably you don't have to push it as much as when you're using a 220 grit. So as I was sharpening on the 1000 grit stone, I noticed actually there is a spot on this knife, that actually bevel, that's not touching on the 1000 stone. It is actually a little bit low spot. That's why it's not touching on the 1000 stone. It happens quite often because the Japanese knives, often the handmade Japanese knives, are made or sharpened with this stone that looks like a big wheel. So making a bevel completely flat with the wheel stone is quite hard. So you most likely will see the little low spots like these on many handmade Japanese knives. You don't have to worry too much about them though, because functionally it's not going to do any harm. As you keep sharpening, as you keep thinning your knife, this low spot will be gone. Now I'm done with the Knifewear 1000 stone on this side. Most of the spots are nicely polished off, but you can still see little scratches. As I explained, it's a low spots. So you can use I'm gonna use this finger stone. It's just basically a small broken out stone of this particular same stone, and I'm just gonna do this technique, just back and forth. You could use the same technique with the sandpaper. Make sure that you wet with your sandpaper as well. Be careful because the edge is right here. Even though you're sharpening it, there's still a potential that you cut yourself. I'm just pressing it very lightly. Yeah, this gives the much more consistent look. So I usually switch my hand so that it looks exactly the same as the other side that I just sharpened. But again, it's an aesthetic thing. Oh, this side is good. It didn't have much low spots. So now I'm done with the thinning process. From here, what I'm going to show you is to basically sharpen the last edge, or the micro bevel, or in Japanese we call it koba. What I would do is just give about 15 degrees on the edge, then do the back and forth. If you want to learn more about this basic sharpening technique, again, you can check out the Nathan's knife sharpening basic video. I like to use, for this first section of putting the micro bevel on, I like to use a bit harder 1000 stone, which I have this, a Hibiki 1000. It just gives you a little bit more precise edge than a bit of softer stone of the Knifewear 1000. What I would do is set it down, find an angle. If you want to know how to find the right angle, check out this video as well. Maybe here, maybe here. Basically what I would do is find an angle and do back and forth. Make sure that the angle you're sharpening stays the same. I do it from heel, middle, and the tip until you raise a burr. And once you actually thin your knife, it's not going to take that long to raise the burr because you already made your knife nice and thin. So here, with very few strokes, I already foamed the burr on the other side. Okay, so what I'm going to do is flip it and find again angle, do it back and forth. And always you want to keep your fingers very close to the edge. That adds the pressure. Right, so when there is a burr, basically it will look like this. So it's not gonna actually cut anything. It's still rounded. So you wanna break this burr to make it nice and straight. You could do either very similar angle. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. Similar angle, just the weight of the knife and the finger to, I guess, support a few strokes like this, or you could do this. Shibata-san and I like to do this. But it's basically the same, right? Like when you're taking the burr off with the honing rod, you're always cutting into it. So, and a few strokes like this. Once you remove the burr from both sides, the knife is sharp. So after this, I'm going to finish this knife with a little bit of finer stone, like 4000 grit. So the edge that you created already with the 1000 is really good, universal edge. It will cut tomatoes without issues. We like to finish Japanese knives, especially with a little bit of finer grits like 4000. Some people finish at really high, like 8000. Since it's a multi-purpose knife, I usually like to finish around 4000 to give silkiness as well as the enough bite to it. You know, fine angle, same angle as you were sharpening on the 1000 stone, because if you change the angle, you're not really sharpening the edge, especially when you're like sharpening at the lower angle than you were sharpening on the 1000. The 4000 will never reach to the edge. So just back and forth. I like to do with the 4000 grit, especially this knife for 4000 grit, is to build this little slurry. Slurry will help polish the edge really nicely as well. One of the ways that you can tell when you're done with the 4000 grit really is how shiny, how polished that edge had become. If you compare that one from one side with finished 1000 grit to the 4000 grit, you can see the micro bevel is like super shiny. It's almost like mirror polish. Although this micro bevel is micro, as I said, it's almost like a hairline. You'll be able to tell by reflecting the light. At the tip, it actually changed the angle because there is a little bit of a carved up tip here. When you actually keep sharpening, you actually do have to tip the knife up a little bit so that the tip of the knife actually hit the stone or touch the stone. Then I'm going to finish with the other side, 4000 grit. Same technique. You could definitely start from anywhere. I usually start from the heel, but it doesn't really matter. You can definitely start from the tip. Again, tip, little bit of upward motion right here. You do not have to put as much pressure with this finishing stone like 4000 or up 8000 grit because you're basically polishing it out. You're building a nice slurry. You're doing very nice fine polishing job right here. You're not really removing that much of steel. Okay, so once you're done, take the burr off. This point, I like to finish with the leather strop. It's a great tool. When there is a little bit of burr left, this will help to take that bit of burr. About same again angle. You don't want to cut into the leather. Just lightly. Go get the food. Cut the tomatoes, potatoes, whatever you're cooking, meat. Maybe go, treat yourself. Get the 5A Wagyu from the local grocery stores. Test it out. It's fun. It's a cooking knife. You're cooking with it. So go wild at it. Well, that's it. That was how to sharpen the Santoku, and also you can apply to the other knives. If you want to know more about knife sharpening, check out this playlist or take a class from one of our stores. And if you think that was too much to do at home, You can bring your knives to our local stores or use our mailing sharpening services.